Hello and welcome back to another Chateau de Bruges video. Before we get started, we must apologise. We've made a big mistake and we are really very sorry. And that mistake was not telling you exactly what our plans were for the salon and more specifically the new chairs that we've bought. Now, we are well aware that if a family or an event book out the entire chateau, for the moment that could sleep up to about 14 guests. But in the future, that could sleep up to 20, if not slightly more with smaller children as well. So we are under the impression that this room is going to be a very popular space for families and events to come and congregate in the evenings and sit and relax. So we are conscious of the fact that this room will need to seat over 14 guests at the same time. So that is why we have as many sofas as we have. That being said, that is only really specifically for one time, if not 2 or 3 times throughout the year, when hopefully the chateau is reserved for these large bookings. For the majority of the time, we're also going to be a B&B, which will mean that maximum we can really host at one time is 10, maybe slightly above 10. And that will mean that we won't need all of these seats in this one space at the same time. So, our plan at the moment is during the B&B season is to move some of the spare chairs that are in here at the moment and put them elsewhere. Now in the future, elsewhere will be something like the Petit Salon, the games room, the bar hopefully, but these are all things that we have not renovated yet and we don't have ready. So for the moment, the chairs will just go into another space out of the way. So with that in mind, with the different kind of things that we're hoping to host here at Chateau de Bruges, we've got a couple of different ideas of how we're going to lay the room out and what we're going to do with the sofas as well. So as you can see on the screen now, we've got a couple of different proposed ideas of where the chairs are going to go in those spaces and how that room is actually going to work. Obviously this will change depending on the season. And depending who is actually using the chateau and how many people we have here as well. So, but yeah, I think that's enough talk. Myself, Danielle and Merlin are going to sit here and enjoy the fire on a Saturday evening and you guys can enjoy the rest of the video.
Enjoy!
Right, hello. Today is Tuesday morning. We had a day yesterday in Clermont-Ferrand with Danielle's uncle and auntie, Michelle and Martin. But today, Tuesday, the work is about to begin. Now Danielle is in Saint-Éloi-le-Mines getting her haircut. Don't worry Jimmy, my haircut is tomorrow, so you can say goodbye to this. But that does mean that I've got to crack on with some bits this morning. So I'm going to start with figuring out this area here. So obviously all the plaster's dry. I just need to figure out how I'm going to get the wood back onto that so that it's ready for filling and sanding and then eventually some painting. I would use nails, but that's how it came loose in the first place. So I'm going to opt for some screws and some wall plugs and we'll see how that goes. And yeah, hopefully all goes smoothly and everything's sorted before Danielle gets back from her haircut. Fingers crossed. Right, let's go. So the plan is to very, very quickly just go around and countersink all of the holes that are on this wood bit, just so that when the screw does go in, it's got that countersink in the wood to be able to sit nice and flush so you can fill over the top of it. And then that way you won't see any of the screw holes once it's on. That should be all good to go. Okay, so that's one done. Screws went in first. I still had a couple of bits around the edges, or most edges, where the wood was kind of peeling away a little bit from the flat surface. So I've just nailed them in as well, deep enough so that they can cover over with some filler, but not too deep that they're through the wood. So that now is nice and sturdy, and that's ready for filling and caulking and eventually painting, which should be done fairly soon. Yeah. On to number 2. Okay, this one might just be a little bit more difficult. It's purely because the wall has moved a lot more on this one than it had done on the other one, which is why we needed to replace it in the first place. But if I put this up and to the left where it's supposed to be, you may be able to notice there's quite a big gap coming down this right hand side, and that's just purely where the wall's kind of fallen out and moved over time. So that will be a little bit of filler after the job's been done, and it'll also be a challenge for me to be able to hold it up there while I'm marking it and then screwing it in. So yeah, slightly more difficult. Shouldn't be too difficult for me, of course, but I'll give it a go.
Okay, so I'm now back from the hairdressers and straight into work. So we're starting, I'm starting one of my first jobs on the snagging list, which is just to caulk some of the corners of the room to make sure they're nice and smooth and neat and no horrible edges. So yeah, there's only a few corners, so it shouldn't take me too long.
So now that I've finished with the wood around the door areas, what are we calling that? Because now I can't just say now that I've finished with the wood, because that sounds a bit dodgy. Now that I've finished with the wood on the wall.
Yeah.
Okay, now that I'm finished with putting the wood on the wall, I'm moving to my next snagging job list, which is to try and get as much of the wallpaper and uneven surfaces from behind the radiators off as best I can before we then paint. Probably would be much easier if the radiator wasn't here, or if we could take it off, but they've been put on in a way that makes them so incredibly difficult to get off that it's just not worth the effort. So we're trying to scrape out as much as we can with the long scraper, and then we'll be able to get behind it with the long, thin, small paint roller. It's quite difficult to do behind the camera screen. Equipped with skinny wrists and a firm grip, I took to sanding the hard-to-reach areas. While Danielle does what Danielle does best, clean up my mess. Safe to say she was pretty enthusiastic to have this job ticked off the list. Time for some fitting now, in some easy and some hard to reach areas. Merlin clearly not impressed with that technique. So, haircut done, face trimmed, ready for another day of work in the dining room. Danielle's already made a start, sanding down some of the filler that we did yesterday. So I best get going.
Are you going to do any work?
I'm getting there. Okay, so most of the filling and sanding has been done now. Danielle's just working her way around the room with the corking all of the corners and any gaps. My job now is to have a look at the light switches to start replacing them with the new light switches that we have. So we'll have a look at them. I think the power's off already, so yeah, we'll get cracking. So always important to test the cables for current after turning off the power, just in case. And just when everything seemed to be going smoothly, so in true Chateau fashion, what started off as quite a basic, simple, easy job has turned into a more difficult one, and that's because whoever did the electricity in here beforehand put the actual socket holes too close to put individual sockets on. So while they had used individual sockets, they had a double faceplate. So what I've done for now is I've put the individual socket plates on, and we're just looking at to see if we can find somewhere that sells a double faceplate in the same brand and the same finish that we're going to have in the rest of the room. So yeah, fingers crossed we can find one of those and add that to that when it comes to it.
I found the sockets, so I'm just ordering them very quickly.
Where are they from? What site?
Brico Man.
And Brico Man. Where is our nearest Brico Man shop?
Clermont-Ferrand, which is about an hour away.
And where is the next nearest?
Limoges, which is also over an hour away, about 2 hours and 20 minutes away. Not ideal.
So we're getting it delivered instead?
Yep.
And that's costing us?
€5 to deliver.
And does it say how long we're going to have to wait?
5 days.
Alright.
It's not bad.
Guess just got to wait 5 days to finish them off then. But for now, I'm going to go and do the single ones because they're much easier. Now let me remind you of something that I said earlier. Always check your cables for current.
Oh, really?
So it turns out I did get a little shock, and that's because this breaker doesn't turn this one off. But what I've just got Danielle to do is hold these two on the cables. So it was beeping, showing a current, and then I went and turned off a load of the breakers until it wasn't beeping. So yes, it's now off, which means hopefully if I touch them both, it shouldn't give me an electric shock.
Oh.
Oh, sorry mister, did you do it like that?
Okay.
It's okay, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Oh.
Oh, growling at me.
Doesn't like the electric shock. It's okay.
There's no one there,
Who is it, Maz? Who is it?
So, lesson learned. Luckily, it wasn't too bad of a shock, but let that be a lesson to all of you. Say it with me now. Always check your cables for current. That honestly took me way too long to edit. So it's Thursday morning. Martin and Michelle, Danielle's auntie and uncle, have just left to head back up to Paris before they make the long journey back to Singapore. And me and Danielle have just got some last minute bits to sand and last minute bits to re-cork before we then put some paint on the ceiling. Now, I can't guarantee it's going to be particularly exciting because it's just white paint, but it should be quite nice to see a difference in this room. Sanding done, let the clean-up begin. Nearly there. The colour for the ceiling is white.
What do you think, Maz? What do you think about the white? Oh.
I don't know. I thought the same. So I've been speaking with our good friend Arnes in the week. He was saying he would be glad to see the back of this ceiling colour. It reminds him of a smoker's room. Now I totally agree. Now we speak really often, nearly every day, but we wanted to let you know, and I'm sure the viewers do as well, that we all care about you very much, and we're thoroughly looking forward to seeing you at the Chateau again in the new year. Stay strong, keep your chin up, and carry on making people smile. It's what you do best. Now this is quite a big ceiling to get covered, and white always needs 2, if not 3 coats to have a flawless finish, especially with the areas that has been filled with the white filler already. But luckily, with a good quality paint, the first layer goes on really well and provides a great coverage for the further layers to go on top. When you're constantly moving around the room, you can sometimes forget to put the brakes on the scaffold. It's okay, Danielle, no one saw it. I missed a bit.
Can't get that. I literally can't get that.
What's it for?
The fire alarm?
Smoke alarm.
Smoke alarm.
So now we've got a couple of layers of white paint on the ceiling, and that's looking good. It's probably going to need one more. We're now going to go around and whitewash all of the walls just to make sure that we've got a nice neutral colour on all of the walls where it is the same colour. Because as you can probably see in this angle here, we've got some real light, paley whites, but we've also got some real dark tangerine colours as well. So that could take the paint very differently. So we're going to make sure it's all white first, so that when we put the coloured paint on, hopefully it's got a nice, secure colour underneath everywhere. I said that really well. All that time in front of cameras and classes full of teenagers clearly paying off for my public speaking skills. It can't even get that out. Public speaking skills. Okay, with all of the edges edged in white and bottom and the top, we're ready to get some white on the walls. Now, obviously, as you can see, like I said earlier, very, very different colours from here to here to here. So we're hoping that that white is just going to give it a nice, neat coat, ready to do our finishing coat of paint over the top. So yeah, let's go. Just a lick of fresh white paint helps to make a room feel much fresher. Okay, so it is Friday morning. All four walls and the ceiling have all had coats of white paint. The ceiling has had 2, the walls have had 1. I think the walls have probably had enough of a base coat, sets them up ready for their colour. But we've had a look around at the ceiling this morning and we're in agreement that the ceiling probably needs 1 more coat, and that's just because the areas that we had to fill and sand, the filler is a really quite bright white, and where the paint has obviously been lighter in those parts than it was on the coloured ceiling, you can still see the bits of filler coming through. So we're going to give it 1 more coat of white, see how that looks. Fingers crossed that covers them up, and then yeah, that'll be the ceiling done.
Yeah.
While Danielle's doing that, I'm going to start doing some of the high bits of the doors with the wood paint, and that's because Danielle can then do the low bits of the doors when I'm using the scaffold tower to do the architrave with the wood paint. So yeah, we've got a plan for this morning.
Yeah.
And we're raring to go. Raring to go. Now we know the colour looks very similar to what's on the woodwork already, but using the Valspar colour spectrum, we picked a warm, neutral, yellowy colour with hints of browns. We hope it will help to provide the dining room with some warmth in the colder months, as well as remaining bright and inviting in the warmer months. It was also important for us to match the colours to the darker browns of the wooden floor and the large side tables that house our guests' crockery and cutlery.
So now that I've finished the 3rd coat of the ceiling, I'm taking over Jake's job. So I'm doing everything up to about my head height, so about door height. In the woodwork paint, while Jake is up on the scaffolding doing all of the ceiling architraves and pretty bits up there. So one's up high, one's up low, and hopefully we can get at least 1 layer of woodwork painted today.
Nice banana paint.
Yeah, it looks like banana milkshake already. That was much better.
We also hope that the warm colour from the lights in the chandelier will help to give the room a nice glow, paired with the orangey reddy browns coming from the roaring fireplace. Please also bear in mind that almost every paint looks very different when wet compared to when it's dry and on the wall. That being said, as always, please let us know what you think, and for those who need reminding, if you're not a fan, we also want to hear from you. Just do it without being a T-Nook. So, while I was painting the door with the new wood paint, I was a little unsure on the colour. I think that's because of the colour that I was painting it onto. It's a real yellowy looking colour. But now that I've got up here and started the architrave, you can see the difference with the colour, the new colour, next to the original kind of banana yellow and the new white ceiling. Now, I much prefer the colour, the shade that you notice here next to the white than the shades that you notice here next to the yellow. So I've got my fingers crossed for this colour. We're yet to put any of the wall colour on the wall, so we'll see what that looks like when we get to that as well. But yeah, it's growing on me when it's next to the white. I hope you can see what I mean. I also wanted to point out that the paint looks really shiny in this clip, purely because it's still wet and the LED light is shining right up at it. Once it dries, it goes a much softer tone and it doesn't look nearly as shiny. So it's 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon and we've been painting for the best part of all day today. So we're pretty mentally done in terms of painting. We're going to finish where we are for this week and come back and attack this with a fresh start on Monday next week, with the hopes of having all of the woodwork painted, first coat and possibly even a second coat by midweek, and then we can get some wall paint on the wall. One more week we think, and then yeah, we'll be pretty much ready to move furniture and stuff back in here.
That'll be a day in itself.
That will be a day in itself. But I think this is us clocking off for the rest of the week. I'll start editing on Saturday morning and Danielle will put her feet up.
No, I won't.
Right, goodbye.